Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the Neophyte class civilian defense ship, the 25th vehicle in my Wimpomania line of vehicles. My name is Wimpoman, and I am the chief designer, chief builder, chief architect, and chief dumbass behind the Neophyte class project. Now, before I start the tour proper, I do want to address the elephant in the room real quick. For those of you who are familiar with my tours, I have a new PC which includes a new headset, and that means that the game is going to look slightly different from usual, from what you're used to. And of course, I'm going to sound slightly different than usual as well, thanks to the new mic. Slightly related to that, you may pick up some noises of my keyboard, because not only do I now have a mechanical keyboard instead of the cheap shitty one I did have before, which is a bit noisier, but the microphone is slightly better, and I didn't bother writing down my avatar settings before I installed the game on my new PC, and I'm not entirely sure if I've got all of the settings of my avatar the same as I used to. It doesn't particularly matter, but I do want to address it because someone is bound to notice. Okie dokie. So, this is the Neophyte class, and before I take you around this new ship, there is sort of kind of an original vehicle to show you. So first of all, I am going to show you that original vehicle. And as usual, it is parked behind the new one, and there it is. This is the Forerunner class, general combat craft, that's right. So, I have said in a previous video that I didn't like... when I built ships before the game was released, so pre-1.0, I did like doing CVs that look the same as an SV that I have already built, or vice versa, an SV that looks like a CV that I'd already done. And then more recently, I said that I had changed my mind about that, and so ships that I built pre-1.0 that looked the same between an SV and a CV, I changed. And then and now I've done two in a row where it's a CV that looks exactly the same as an SV that I'd already built. So this one is slightly different. Those of you who are astute will see the subtle differences. There obviously are some that aren't so subtle, like the shape and orientation of the nacelles are completely different between the two. But generally speaking, it's the same, just with a few subtle differences. So the bit that holds the landing gear is sort of similar, but it's not the same. So there we go. So the reason I built this CV is because I love the design of this so much that I thought a CV version of it would just look good. It just looks like a menacing ship, and I thought a CV version of it would look more so. So that's basically why it looks the same, although because I don't want it to look exactly the same, I have done some differences. So there we go, there's the original. Right, so that'll be the end of the first segment. So the next segment is going to be its role and its task equipment. Okay, so its role is a civilian defense ship, as opposed to something that's military. So it's tasked with defending civilian colonies and settlements against enemy ground forces attacks, as well as drones and patrol ships. Sort of. And I will cover this sort of bit when we get to the upgrading segment. But at the moment, the way it comes stock, it is only in its anti-infantry configuration. Now, to perform its defensive roles, it has a bunch of weapons that includes some sentry guns for shooting at the infantry, and I'll get those out later on. It does have a couple, only two, of the slightly heavier weapons, and then it has a bunch of point defense Gatlings as well. As usual with my tours, you could say that the thrusters are part of its task equipment too, because without them it wouldn't be able to move anywhere. Righto, so that'll be the end of that segment. The next segment is going to be its propulsion, handling and lift capacity. Right, so as usual, I will leave it on the floor so that we don't have to put up with the noise of the lift thrusters lifting. That does, however, mean we have to go under the ground. So if you don't mind the... it kind of disappears, doesn't it? But yeah, if you don't mind seeing the ground from the other side, it's better, I think, than listening to the noise. So, one important thing to mention straight away is that this does not have a warp drive. So this is not FTL capable. It can go between a planet and a moon and back, but that's it. Right then, starting with its forward thrust, it has 16 medium thrusters. These are mediums, and I'm sure you can tell that there's 16 because there's 2 groups of 4 on the back of each nacelle. Obviously, 2 4s are 8 and 2 8s are 16. And then for reverse, it has 10 medium and 2 smalls. That's because, yeah, it's that one. That one's a small. The rest are mediums. The front of the other nacelle is the same. And again, those of you who are Rachel Riley will be able to tell that that's 4 and that's 1. That makes 5, and 2 of those is 10, okay? Right, laterally, it has 11 medium thrusters. So there's 8 on the side of each nacelle, plus another 3 down here to help with yaw. For descent, it has 10 medium thrusters. So there's 4, there's another 4, that makes 8, and the 2 at the front make 10. And then for ascent, lift, it has 2 small and 12 medium thrusters. Land, there we go, that's better. So there's 4, there's obviously another 4 over there, that's 8. And then here are 2 mediums and a small. So 8 plus those 2 plus the other 2, that's 12. And then 2 smalls. The astute among you will have noticed that there are some off. This ship does have a max lift function. It's 8 medium thrusters. There's clearly 4. And since the other nacelle is a mirror image, the other 4 are over there. So for its mobility, starting with its maneuverability, so this is with max lift off, it'll accelerate forwards at 146 meters per second squared. It'll reverse at 99 meters per second squared. It'll do 100 laterally, 91 down, and it'll climb at 117 meters per second squared. With max lift on, though, the 117 lift changes to 190. As for its agility, it will yaw at 87 degrees per second, it will pitch at 67, and roll at 116. Again, that's with max lift off. So with max lift on, 67 pitch changes to 82, and 116 roll changes to 140. I'm not going to bother doing it a test fly. You can probably guess from the stats anyway that it is fairly manoeuvrable, although it isn't... Oh, for Pete's sake, I swear I stopped that. Yeah, so it is a CV, but it is quite a small one, so it is rather manoeuvrable and agile. Right, that'll be... Oh no, lift capacity. So, with max lift off, it can operate in up to 11.9 G. Now, of course, there is no planets in the vanilla game that get anywhere close to that. As far as I know, 4G is the max. But that is, of course, dry weight. And of course, if it can operate in up to 11.9, it means it's going to have no problem at all with 4G. Is why I always give it more performance than it really needs. With max lift on, it can lift 8.9 kilotons in 4G, and the ship itself weighs basically 1.9. So for the sake of easy maths, you take 1.9 away from the 8.9 that it can lift, and that means you can lift a further 7 kilotons. So yes, it can definitely do quite a bit, although other than ammo, you're not going to really need that. But it does mean if you need to fly straight up and out of an atmosphere, for example, as quickly as possible, it's going to be able to do that. Righto, that'll be the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its power, fuel, and air. So as usual with my tours, I'm going to tell you about this stuff now and then show you where it all is later on. Power, it has 4 large tier 1 generators. That seems to be standard for my ships, CVs I mean. It also has a small tier 1 and 8 medium tier 2 fuel tanks. Of course it has no pentaxive tank because it doesn't have a warp drive. Again, come back to that in the upgrading bit. It has 3 small O2 tanks, 2 ventilators, 1 O2 station, and it only has 2 compartments, the bottom deck and the top deck. Okay, that'll be the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its weapons, defences and construction. Righto, starting with its weapons then, and we'll go from the lightest to the heaviest. So she has 7 sentry turrets that are set to what I consider to be my anti-personnel configuration. So they will target predators and ground troops, including drones. There's 2 in each wing and 3 in the nose. Then she has, let's go to the top one actually, I don't know why I was going to the chin one. It has 4 Gatling turrets set to my point defense configuration. So they will target drones along with obviously ground troops, simply because you can't separate those, as well as the weaponry of small vessels. And then finally, the heavier turrets, we have 2 flat turrets, 1 on each side, that I've set to general purpose, which on a CV will attack the weapons and thrusters of bases and ships. Assuming, of course, that they have thrusters, because obviously bases don't, okay? Now, just because that's what it comes with and how they are set when it spawns, it doesn't mean that's how you have to leave it. You can, of course, rip stuff out and add extra stuff. Again, come back to that in the upgrading, because some of it is actually intended. Right, defences. Doesn't really have any. So she doesn't come with a shield stock, because I wanted to keep the cost and the unlock level down. And she doesn't really have any armour either. And that brings us on to the construction. And of course, I have an unpainted version over here, which I have been doing a lot recently with my tours so that you can see what it's built from. Of course, I have a structural frame. On this ship, it's made from hardened steel. Alright. Then the rest of the hull is steel, apart from a small amount of carbon composite. The illuminated orientation panels are carbon. There's a little bit of detail around the door as well. When we go inside, the deck plating of deck 2 is carbon composite, except for where it's the structural frame and outer hull. Well, I've made that steel so that if the stuff at the front here takes damage, the floor of the cockpit isn't just going to disappear as well. And obviously some of the blocks protecting the turrets, or at least protecting the inside if the turret goes, is carbon composite. I didn't unpaint that, but I believe that's steel. I think it is. Oh, it's plastic. Okay. I must have remembered to downgrade it then, because I know the ship I pasted it copied and pasted it from. Don't look behind the curtain too much. Yes, I copied and pasted the reactors from a different ship. In fact, you will be familiar with these reactors because they're in quite a lot of my ships. And the one I copied it from, it was steel, so I obviously remembered to downgrade it. But there you go. That's what it's made from. So the core, you may have seen it when we were in here, is actually up there in the engineering, and there is a small amount of armor protecting it. But other than that, that is all the armor you get. Except for in here, and I think this is actually carbon composite. Can we see it? Yes, there, carbon composite. So basically the back end between the two rear turrets is carbon composite. Rightio, that'll be the end of that segment. I think we've had a decent enough view of that. So the next segment then is going to be its resource gathering, production and storage. Okay, this should be fairly quick. Resource gathering, it has none. Production, it has none. And storage, it has a single 320k SU ammo container, as well as two 72,000k. What? 72,000k? Yeah, that's 72 million, isn't it? 72k SU ammo containers. It has two 24k cargo containers, two large cargo boxes, one armor locker, one small and one meds fridge, and that's your lot. So it doesn't come very well equipped, but it's a combat ship. Right, that'll be the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its interior layout and any remaining devices. So as usual, since we are on the outside of the ship already, let's start with the any remaining devices that are on the outside, since that's where we are already, on the outside. Landing gear, it has some, 4 of them. Headlights, it has 2, one in each wing on the, well, where it connects to the hull, the body, chassis. Yeah. Right, speaking of lights, the ship does come, of course, fully flight regulation lighting compliant, as does most of my ships. In fact, there's only one that doesn't, and even that does mostly. It's just there's a couple missing. So, if we start with the ones that are already running, we have the running lights here. These let any observer know that the ship is powered, so that if you set it to power save, for example, there's always a reminder on the ship to let you know that it is still using fuel. And these are, as you can see, slowly pulsing away. There is one in all 8 corners. That is to say, one in all 4 corners on top and one in all 4 corners on the bottom. Then we have the orientation lights, and these come in 2 flavors. The first is these illuminated orientation panels that you can see dotted around the ship. And these act as the ship's formation lights, so that other ships can fly in formation with it. And as with the navigation lights, we have red on the port side, white on the stern side, and green on the starboard side. Unlike nav lights, though, we also have yellow on the ventral side. Speaking of nav lights, these are the orientation lights that let any observer know in which direction the ship is facing or flying. You could argue that the illuminated orientation panels do that too, but whatever. Again, I will show you these turned on later on. For now, I'm just going to tell you about them. So we have red navigation lights on the port side, a white one on the stern, and then green ones on the starboard side. And then we come to its next lot of lights. This is the anti-collision lights, and again, they come in 2 flavors. The first flavor is the anti-collision beacons, which, assuming that you use the propulsion etc. switch, will turn on automatically with the thrusters. And again, I'll show you these turned on later, but we have a red flashing one on top and a yellow flashing one on the bottom. and these let any observers know that the thrusters are powered and therefore the ship could move at any moment. And finally we have the flight strobes, which are the bright white flashing lights you often see on the wingtips of planes. So there's two there, obviously the other side is a mirror image, and these are to help with visual acquisition from a distance. As I always say, that doesn't necessarily translate very well into the game, because as usual the game will often render the ship before the lights, but I do it for realism. Okay, then we come to its displays. On the outside we have, actually round the back, a name display and a registry display, and then on the side we have a class and registry display, but we'll start with these round the back. So there's only two projectors there, so it's only going to be 50-50 for which one does which. I think that one comes down and does this one, and then that one goes up and does that one. But like I said, it's only going to be 50-50, so even if you get it wrong the first time, it's going to be right the next time. So if you want to, edit these, those are the ones you need to do, that one there and that one there. So you can of course type in the name of the ship you want. As I always say, it doesn't actually matter what you want to name it. Oh, I should say as well, you can also do it in the control panel menu there as well. Now technically the Neophyte would be the first ship, and that would be mine. No one's going to know or care if you want to name it the Neophyte. If you can't even be bothered to do that, you can of course just leave it as that, or multi-tool up the projector, for example. For those who care, the prefix there simply stands for Interplanetary System Vessel or Vehicle, either or, and that simply means it's a vessel that goes in between a planet's system. So that's between a planetary system, so that's in between a planet and its satellites. Then we have its main registry up here. So you would swap the number symbols there for the number of which yours is. If you can be bothered to figure that out, you would go to the workshop, count how many people are subscribed to it, add 1 because I have 1 and I'm not subscribed to it, and that should be the number of yours, assuming of course you were the last one to subscribe. And in case you care, the WM25 simply stands for Wimpomania, the line to which this ship belongs, and it's the 25th one in the line. Then we come to its main registry and its class display. So as you can see, the main registry, no, for Pete's sake, the full registry and its class, that's what I meant to say. The full registry does include the main registry. It also includes some extra info. This stands for Wimpomania Manufacturing. This bit is the type of ship it is. This is its official term. So this is a civilian combat ship dash defense, and as you can see, it's a Neophyte class civilian defense ship. Again, if you can be bothered to change the number symbols, the projector is nearby. Of course, if you can't be bothered, feel free to leave it as the number symbols, or you could of course put any number there you like, your house number, your date of birth, your credit card pin, whatever. Is there anything else on the outside of the ship? No, I think everything else is on the inside. Okay. The entrance into the ship is around the back, and as you can probably tell, the lights and the ramp are on a motion sensor, that one there specifically. The door is of course automatic. It's automatically automatic. By default it's automatic because it's a CV. Right, we come on to the inside. Oh, hang on, I forgot to point that out. So this little light green light here that's light green, the light green light that's light green, indicates where an ingress point is. So if you can't find your way in, look for a light green light. Likewise, the light red lights here that are light red indicate that that is an exterior door. Here we have the two 24K cargo containers. Here. Armor locker, O2 station, the two large cargo boxes, the meds fridge and the small fridge. Then the two 72K ammo containers are there and there. You can also see the tier 3 CPU extenders on the side, access to fuel and O2. There is more elsewhere, but these are accessible. Moving forward, we have a medic station. There is a head for your toiletry needs. A sign there that I will go into in a bit when we get to the upgrading, but that tells you what the intended weapons loadout is. And there is the 320k ammo container. Going up the steps, we go to deck 2. It leads straight into the cockpit, where we have the detector, 2 gunner seats and a pilot seat. Moving back along this walkway, we come into the engineering section, where there is 2 reactors, each with a large tier 1 generator, some consoles, and some carbon composite blocks that you can rip out for upgrades. Then, hang on. The Wi-Fi is there, and as I showed you just now, the core is up there. Now, there is a few extra things dotted around. Where are they? So there's fuel either side of where the shield would go. Oh, the thruster nacelles are completely solid, by the way, on this one, in case you were curious. And the other 2 O2 tanks are in the back behind the shield generator, just in front of the rear turrets. Right. That's everything I need to show you in here, other than that the pilot gets some heads-up displays. And I'm going to use, I'm going to use that one in a second to transition on to the next segment. But first, we have this one that outlines what the power save does and its lift capacities. No one's ever complained about this, but I have thought maybe I'm doing it wrong. I put the additional lift capacity on top of the ship's mass. Nobody has ever complained that that's the wrong way of doing it and I should be putting its total there. So I'm guessing everyone's okay with it, but I have been thinking, have I been doing it wrong? Right, so moving on then to the device groups and signals heads-up display, I'm going to use this to transition into the next segment, which is going to be its shortcuts and signals. And as you can probably guess, that tells you what they all do and gives you a handy reminder of what the default shortcuts are. Obviously, the shortcuts only work while you're in seats, Jeff Randall. So, starting with... Oh, hang on. Device groups. Please do not auto-group the device groups, Jeff Randall. Because some of the device group shortcuts do rely on my custom device groups to work. So, at the start, at the top of the device groups column, we have propulsion, etc. That will turn on all of the default thrusters, as I referred to them earlier, as well as the anti-collision beacons. We just saw the yellow one, and there's the red one there. The next one down was, of course, max lift, which turns on the other lift thrusters. Pretty self-explanatory. So we have a few that are empty, and as I've said in other videos, I tend to put these in the same order on every single ship, even if that means there is stuff empty in between. So the artificial gravity and the air vents are always at the bottom in these positions, so that you can, like when you get used to my ships, my builds, you can always go straight to them. I didn't think about doing it with my HVs because I'm a noob, but I have been doing it with the ships for the most part. Although, again, I seem to be moving stuff around and I really shouldn't be, but whatever. So the next one down is, of course, the artificial gravity. Oh, I didn't show you this, did I? So it does have a gravity generator, and it's basically in the top, just under this lump. It is a small one. It does cover the entire ship. And it does mean if you're out in space, you can turn it on and then you can walk around within the ship. The air vents, I'm going to cover this just in case this is the first tour of mine you've seen, but I will try and do it as quickly as possible in case it isn't, so you don't have to sit through a lengthy explanation. If we have a look at power left and turn oxygen off, that doesn't change, because although the ventilators are no longer blowing air into the interior of the ship, the ventilator blocks themselves are still on. So if we watch the power left and turn the air vents off, you will see you can save some power in a breathable atmosphere. Okay, thank you. So moving on to the signals column. We have power save at the top. There is, as I said, a heads-up display there that tells you what it does, but basically turning the power save on will turn off the Wi-Fi, the light control sensors. So, for example, can I see it? Yeah, that one up there. I kept sliding down the stairs. I let go of the button. And that one there. It will also turn off the one that controls this ramp and the exterior lights there. It will also turn off the LCD projectors. So these ones here, it won't turn off the ones that come on, and I will show you those in a minute, but there are a couple that come on with the weapons. It'll turn off that one there, and where was the other one? Oh yeah, down here, that one there. Is that it? Oh, and the projectors on the outside as well, the name and registry displays, it'll turn those off too. Okay, so speaking of weapons then, don't fall down the stairs, thank you. Weapons and shields. Loud. Of course, it doesn't come with a shield, but you can put a shield in and then set it to that signal. So that will, of course, turn on or extend, if you prefer, all of the turrets and stuff. It'll also, as you can see, turn on the turret gunners' heads-up displays, weapons controls, things. Loud. So the next one down, or the next couple actually that has anything in them, is the nav lights and the flight strobes. We shall go and have a look at those now, as I promised earlier. So there's the red ones on the port, the white one on the stern, and the green ones on the starboard side. And you can also see the flight strobe strobing away. Yeah. And then one on the back as well. Blink. Okie dokie. And then the last one is its headlights. Now, I do know, of course, that there is a keyboard shortcut you can use. As I always say, though, you only use that when you're in a seat. So, if you land with your headlights on, and then you get out the cockpit seat, you come all the way out the ship, and you get to here, and then realise, because of the light on the ground, that you've left them on, I don't want you to have to go all the way back through the ship into the cockpit seat in order to turn them off. So I've given you a signal switch to do it from the outside as well. Oh, other info. I'll talk about that. I just realised I forgot something, but it's okay. I'll cover it in a minute. Okay, that'll be the end of that segment then. So the next segment is going to be CPU and upgrading. Okay, so in case you're skipping around in the video, let's show you where this is again. So the core is in the spine of the ship, protected by some hardened steel. The CPU extenders are down here on deck 1, and as you can probably tell, it's a tier 3 CPU ship. It uses just under 900,000 of the 1.5 million you are allowed, so there's about 600,000 to play with. As for upgrading, well, as I've alluded to already, there is slots here for a pentaxid tank and a shield generator. You remove the red blocks to place them in, and the red blocks are carbon composite to make them easier to remove. And there is a sign here, a screen that tells you about the intended weapons loadout. So the ship is actually intended to be an anti-ship ship. It's not quite a ship shipping ships that ships ships. Yeah. However, it is supposed to be an anti-ship ship. But again, I wanted to keep the unlock level and the cost down. So with the intended loadout, it would be an unlock level 25, whereas now it's a 15. So to get to upgrade it to its intended loadout, you would remove all 7 sentry turrets, and then you would put 4 pulse lasers, 2 in each wing, there and there, and then 3 rocket launchers there. Oh, you might also need to remove the piping behind those to make space. So in here, for example, the rocket launchers are supposed to go right up against these container extensions, and then they don't stick out very far from the front of the ship. But there you go, that's what you can do with its upgrading. Now, of course, if you want to replace some of the Gatling turrets with others, you can, of course. But it is intended to be Gatling's 4-point defense. But it's your ship, you do with it as you like. Oh, and I might as well cover this now. I have given you a choice of primary colours, so it comes in the Wimpomania blue, but I've also given you this military green. Or it might be camouflage green, I can't remember now, because it's been a while since I built the last ship that uses this colour, so I can't remember whether I call it camouflage green or military green, but it's one of the two. I think it's probably camouflage green, but I could be wrong. Okay, that's the end of that segment. So the next and last segment is going to be any other info. Right, here's the bit I forgot to mention in the construction segment bit. So these windows are the hardened, the armoured, or what do they call them? Armoured or hardened? Armoured. And in front of the cockpit seat, this is 2 layers of the window, so you can take a few more shots from the front. I forgot to mention that. Right. I'm going to cover this real quick. I have, of course, given it my damage texture, which, in case you care, is that texture in that colour. And I do this so that when you lose a block, it looks more like damage. That to me looks like smouldering metal, whereas I left it as default. Those textures are used elsewhere in the ship, so it doesn't necessarily look like it's not intended to look like that. That's why I do that. The blink is, if you don't like me flashing at you, I will talk to you real quick about how to turn them off. I apologise for the noise on my microphone there. I scratched my face. Obviously, the nav lights and the flight strobes are easy because you just don't turn them on. The anti-collision beacons will come on automatically with this switch. There's the red one on top just there. So if they get on your nerves, you scroll to the bottom of the device groups and you're looking for the reg lights prefix. This is regulation lights, and specifically anti-collision. If they are already on, you turn them off with this activate switch here that turns off the entire group, and then you remove the shortcut there and they will never come on again. And the running lights are similar. So the running lights, as I pointed out earlier, are the ones that are on automatically. Again, scroll to the bottom looking for the reg lights prefix. You're looking for running lights and you simply deactivate the entire group. And since there is no shortcut to worry about, that's it. If you don't like the flashy flashes, you turn them off that way. One more thing to say is the naming convention of the Wimpomania line of vehicles. So I consider myself to be a noob, N-O-O-B, at building. And so when I started to flesh out the Wimpomania line of ships, I decided that all the ships should be named either synonyms of newbie, N-E-W-B-I-E, so words that mean someone who is new at something, or words that mean someone who is the first at something. Neophyte, by the way, is someone who is new to a profession or subject or something like that, especially to a religion, possibly, something like that. Alright, so there we go, that's that. And I think I've told you everything. Oh, there's one last thing to do that I like to do in the tour video for no real good reason, and that is, of course, to publish it on camera. Leave it private so I can do the description and the images. There we go. Right, so thank you very much for taking an interest in the Neophyte class civilian defense ship. I hope you get some use out of it, and hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So thank you again, and goodbye.